In the year 2847, humanity had finally reached the stars. After centuries of hard work, Earth joined the Galactic Council, a group of advanced civilizations that promised peace and cooperation. For years, people celebrated this achievement, believing they were now equals among the galaxy's greatest powers. But beneath the surface of unity, trouble was brewing. Ethan Carter, a diplomat from Earth, stood in the Grand Hall of the Council on planet Centrix. The room was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. Each race had its own unique appearance and customs, but all shared one thing: power. Ethan felt out of place among them. He wasn't a soldier or a scientist. He was just a man trying to protect his home. His wife, Laura Bennett, often joked that diplomacy was harder than astrophysics, but today, Ethan believed her. Laura worked aboard an orbital research station orbiting Earth. She spent her days studying distant stars and strange energy patterns. Recently, she noticed something unusual: mysterious signals near human colonies. At first, she thought it was nothing more than space debris interfering with instruments. But as the signals grew stronger, so did her unease. She tried to warn Ethan, but communication delays between Earth and Centrix made it difficult. Back in the council chamber, tensions rose. Representatives argued over trade routes, resource allocations, and territorial disputes. Humanity's rapid progress had always been a sore point for some members of the council. They saw Earth as reckless, advancing too quickly without respecting the rules of the galaxy. Ethan knew these complaints well. He had heard them countless times during meetings, but today felt different. Today, the air was heavy with hostility. The council leader, a towering insect-like creature named Veilrock, called for order. His voice echoed through the chamber, silencing the murmurs. "Today," he began, "we address a grave matter. Evidence has emerged that humanity has violated interstellar law." Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. "Violations? What violations?" Veilrock continued, his tone cold and accusing. "Humanity has secretly developed weapons technology far beyond their permitted level. This is a direct threat to the stability of our alliance." Images flashed on a large screen behind him. Blueprints, schematics, and footage of human engineers working in labs. Ethan stared at the evidence, stunned. None of this made sense. Earth had no such program. Someone was framing them. Before Ethan could respond, the council moved to vote. One by one, representatives raised their hands or signaled agreement in their own ways. Humanity was found guilty. The punishment: immediate expulsion from the council and authorization for military action against Earth. Ethan's mind raced. How could this happen? Who had set them up? And why? As the meeting ended, guards approached Ethan. They weren't here to escort him politely back to his quarters. He needed to leave, now. Thinking fast, Ethan activated a small device hidden in his pocket. It created a brief burst of static, disrupting the guards' communication systems. Seizing the moment, he slipped away, disappearing into the labyrinthine corridors of the council building. Meanwhile, light years away, Laura watched the news unfold on her station's screens. Her worst fears were coming true. The council had turned on humanity. She clenched her fists, determination replacing fear. If Earth was going down, it wouldn't go quietly. Ethan eventually reached a secure line and contacted Laura. "They're coming for us," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to warn everyone." Everyone. And so, humanity's fight for survival began. Not with weapons or armies, but with a single warning whispered across the stars. Back on Earth, the news of humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council spread like wildfire. Panic gripped cities as people realized the gravity of the situation. Governments held emergency meetings, military leaders scrambled to prepare defenses, and ordinary citizens braced for the worst. The Council's decision wasn't just a slap in the face. It was a declaration of war. Everyone knew it was only a matter of time before their fleets arrived. Jacob Hayes, a retired Marine now living a quiet life in the countryside, received an unexpected visit from two officers. They informed him that Earth needed his expertise. Jacob had spent decades leading troops in conflicts across the solar system, earning a reputation for his tactical brilliance. Though he had left that life behind, the look in their eyes told him there was no room for refusal. Reluctantly, he agreed to help. At the same time, Laura Bennett worked tirelessly aboard her orbital research station. She had been analyzing the mysterious energy signatures near human colonies, trying to understand what they meant. Then, she intercepted something chilling: encrypted transmissions between council ships. After days of decoding, she uncovered their plans. A massive attack aimed at wiping out Earth's outer colonies within the next week. Time was running out. Laura immediately contacted Ethan, who had managed to escape Zentrix and was now hiding on a remote outpost. "They're coming," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to warn everyone, not just Earth, but every system that might be next." Ethan nodded, though she couldn't see him. He knew what they had to do. Humanity couldn't fight this battle alone. If other species understood the Council's true intentions, maybe they'd join the fight, or at least prepare to defend themselves. But how could they spread the message? The Council controlled most communication networks, blocking any attempts to broadcast unauthorized signals. That's when Emily Dawson stepped in. A young hacker with a knack for breaking into secure systems, Emily had made a name for herself exposing corporate corruption before being recruited by Earth's intelligence agency. When Jacob briefed her on the plan, she didn't hesitate. "I'll find a way," she said confidently. Emily discovered a network of ancient relay stations scattered throughout the galaxy. These relics, built by long-extinct civilizations, were still functional despite centuries of neglect. With some modifications, they could transmit a signal powerful enough to reach millions of systems. The challenge was activating them without drawing attention from Council patrols. Jacob assembled a small team to assist Emily. They traveled to the nearest relay station, located on a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant. The journey was tense, with everyone aware that failure meant disaster. Upon arrival, Emily got to work, her fingers flying over her console as she hacked into the station's core. Hours passed, and just as she finished, alarms blared. A Council patrol had detected their presence. Chaos erupted. Jacob led the team in a desperate defense, using portable turrets and makeshift barricades to hold off enemy drones. Explosions lit up the dark sky as laser fire streaked through the air. Despite the chaos, Emily stayed focused, her hands steady as she initiated the transmission. "This is Earth," the message began. "The Galactic Council has betrayed us. If you value your freedom, run." The signal pulsed outward, reaching countless worlds in seconds. Across the galaxy, beings of all kinds paused as the warning echoed through their communication devices. Some dismissed it as fear-mongering. Others took it seriously, preparing to flee or fortify their homes. For humanity, it was a lifeline, a chance to rally allies and expose the Council's tyranny. When the last drone fell silent, Jacob gave the order to retreat. As they boarded their ship, Emily glanced back at the relay station. It was already crumbling under enemy fire, but its job was done. Humanity's cry for help had been heard. Now they could only wait and see who would answer. Back on Earth, Jacob reviewed footage of the battle, his expression grim. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Not even close." The broadcasts sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time, countless species learned of the Galactic Council's betrayal, not just against humanity, but potentially against anyone who dared to step out of line. The message was simple: the Galactic Council has betrayed us. If you value your freedom, run. It wasn't a call to arms. It was a warning. But for some, it sparked more than fear. It ignited rebellion. On Earth, Jacob Hayes and his team monitored the response from their underground command center. Screens flickered with reports of unrest in Council-controlled systems. Some colonies ignored the warning, dismissing it as propaganda. Others began evacuating their populations, fleeing to uncharted regions of space. Most surprising, however, were the whispers of dissent within the Council itself. Ethan Carter, now safely back on Earth, worked tirelessly to reach out to potential allies. He knew they couldn't face the Council alone. Among the alien races, one stood out as a possible supporter: the Quarrens. Known for their peaceful nature and strict neutrality, the Quarrens had always kept their distance from galactic politics. But Ethan suspected that even they might be uneasy about the Council's recent actions. Using an old communication channel, he sent a direct appeal to Kelvor, the Quarren leader. Days passed without a reply. Tension mounted as Council warships moved closer to Earth's borders. Then, finally, a response came. Kelvor agreed to meet, but only if Ethan came alone. Trusting there was no other choice, Ethan boarded a small shuttle and headed for a neutral asteroid station where the meeting was set to take place. When he arrived, Kelvor greeted him with cautious respect. "The Council grows too powerful," Kelvor said, his voice low and measured. "Their greed will destroy us all if left unchecked. Humanity's warning. It confirms what we feared." Ethan listened intently as Kelvor explained that many Quarrens opposed the Council's decision to attack Earth. However, they lacked the strength to challenge them openly. Instead, Kelvor offered something else: intelligence. In exchange for asylum once the conflict ended, the Quarrens would provide critical information about Council operations. Meanwhile, far from Earth, Ryan Mitchell and his crew aboard the Stellar Rogue Asterisk played a crucial role in rallying support. Ryan, a rugged smuggler with a knack for survival, had spent years navigating the galaxy's shadowy corners. His ship became a lifeline for refugees fleeing Council oppression. Alongside him were Mia Torres, a sharp-witted navigator, and Alex Brooks, a mechanic whose quick thinking kept the ship running despite constant repairs. One day, while stopping at a remote trading post, Ryan encountered a group of rogue traders. They were skeptical at first, wary of getting involved in a fight against the Council. But when Ryan shared stories of Council atrocities, entire colonies wiped out, families torn apart, they began to listen. Slowly, word spread among the galaxy's outcasts. Smugglers, scavengers, and mercenaries started banding together, forming loose alliances to aid Earth's cause. Back on Earth, Laura Bennett analyzed data pouring in from across the galaxy. She noticed patterns in the Council's movements, identifying weak points in their defenses. Her insights allowed Jacob to plan hit-and-run attacks, targeting supply lines and disrupting enemy communications. These small victories bought humanity precious time, though everyone knew the real battle was yet to come. As days turned into weeks, the Council's patience wore thin. Their fleets advanced, closing in on Earth's outer colonies. Refugees poured into the inner systems, seeking safety behind fortified walls. Cities prepared for siege, digging bunkers and stockpiling resources. The air was thick with tension, anticipation hanging like a storm cloud over the planet. In the command center, Jacob stared at a map of the approaching forces. "They're coming," he said quietly, "and this time, they won't stop until we're gone." Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we make them regret it," she replied, her voice steady. "Every second we hold on is another chance for someone to join our side." Across the galaxy, the warning echoed. Some ran, some fought, and others watched, waiting to see how the story would unfold. Humanity stood on the brink of destruction, but not alone. The Council's fleet arrived at Earth's outer colonies with devastating speed. Their ships blotted out the stars, their weapons glowing with energy as they prepared to strike. Jacob Hayes watched from the command center, his jaw clenched. He knew humanity couldn't win a direct fight against such overwhelming odds, but they could make the Council pay for every step forward. Laura Bennett worked beside him, analyzing data from the first wave of attacks. The Council targeted civilian settlements, obliterating them without mercy. Refugees fled in panic, their ships overcrowded and under constant threat of being shot down. Laura's hands trembled as she relayed coordinates to Jacob's forces. "We can't save everyone," she whispered, her voice breaking. Jacob nodded grimly. "But we'll save who we can." Jacob split his forces into small, mobile units. Each team operated independently, striking quickly and vanishing before the Council could retaliate. They used guerrilla tactics, ambushes, sabotage, and hit-and-run attacks to slow the enemy's advance. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it bought precious time for civilians to escape. Ryan Mitchell and his crew aboard the Stellar Rogue Asterisk played a vital role in these efforts. Ryan became a legend among the Resistance, his ship darting through enemy lines like a ghost. One night, he led a daring raid on a Council supply depot. With Maya Torres navigating treacherous asteroid fields and Alex Brooks disabling security systems, the crew managed to steal crates of weapons and fuel. These supplies were delivered to Jacob's fighters, giving them a much-needed edge. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter worked closely with Calvor and the Corans. The intelligence they provided proved invaluable. Through intercepted transmissions, Ethan learned that the Council planned to launch a massive assault on Earth's capital city within days. Worse, they intended to use experimental weapons designed to shatter planetary defenses. If they succeeded, humanity would be wiped out. Ethan shared this information with Jacob and Laura, who immediately began planning a counterattack. They identified a key weakness in the Council's strategy: their reliance on centralized command hubs. If these hubs could be destroyed, the Council's forces would fall into disarray. The challenge was reaching them. The hubs were heavily guarded, deep within enemy territory. Jacob proposed a bold plan. He would lead a small strike team to infiltrate one of the hubs while Ryan and his crew created a diversion nearby. The mission was risky, but there was no other option. Volunteers stepped forward willingly, knowing what was at stake. Among them was Emily Dawson, the hacker who had helped broadcast the warning. "I started this," she said firmly. "I'm finishing it." The operation began under cover of darkness. Ryan and his crew launched a series of decoy attacks, drawing Council ships away from the target area. Meanwhile, Jacob's team slipped past enemy patrols, using cloaking technology provided by the Corans. The journey was tense, every moment filled with the fear of discovery. When they finally reached the command hub, Laura guided them through its defenses using real-time data. Inside, chaos erupted as Jacob's team engaged Council soldiers. Gunfire echoed through the corridors, and alarms blared. Emily worked quickly, planting explosives at critical junctions. Her hands moved with precision, even as sweat dripped down her face. "Done," she shouted, signaling the others to retreat. As they fled, the explosives detonated, crippling the hub. Council forces stumbled, their coordination shattered. For the first time, humanity gained the upper hand. Across the galaxy, those who had doubted Earth's resolve now sought its determination. Refugees cheered, smugglers rallied, and even some Council members began questioning their leaders' decisions. Back on Earth, Jacob stared at the horizon, smoke rising from distant battles. "It's not over," he said quietly, "but we've shown them we won't go down without a fight." Laura nodded, her eyes reflecting both hope and fear. Humanity had struck a blow, but the war was far from finished. The destruction of the Council's command hub sent shockwaves through their ranks. For the first time, humanity had struck a meaningful blow against their oppressors. But the victory was short-lived. The Council regrouped quickly, redirecting their forces to crush Earth's resistance once and for all. Jacob Hayes knew they couldn't keep fighting like this forever. Every battle cost lives, resources, and hope. They needed something bigger, a way to end the war before it consumed them all. Ethan Carter met with Calvor again, seeking answers. The Coran leader revealed a devastating truth. The Council had developed a super weapon called the Void Catalyst. Hidden deep within their territory, the weapon was capable of collapsing entire star systems into black holes. If activated, it could wipe out not just Earth but countless other worlds in an instant. Ethan's blood ran cold. The Council wasn't just planning to defeat humanity. They were planning to erase it completely. "We can't let that happen," Ethan said firmly. "If we destroy the catalyst, we might stand a chance." Calvor hesitated, his expression troubled. "It will be nearly impossible to reach," he warned. "But if anyone can do it, it's you." Ethan returned to Earth and shared the news with Jacob and Laura. The weight of the mission pressed heavily on them. Destroying the void catalyst would require sneaking into the heart of Council territory, an area so heavily guarded that even rogue traders avoided it. It was suicide. But if they succeeded, they could turn the tide of the war. Ryan Mitchell volunteered immediately. "I've been running from the Council my whole life," he said with a wry smile. "Might as well go out swinging." His crew agreed without hesitation. Maya Torres plotted a risky route through uncharted space, while Alex Brooks modified the Stellar Rogue to withstand the journey. Together, they prepared for what might be their final flight. Jacob assembled a small strike team to accompany Ryan. Alongside him were Emily Dawson, whose hacking skills would be crucial, and a handful of soldiers willing to risk everything. Ethan insisted on joining them, knowing his diplomatic experience might help navigate alliances along the way. Laura begged him to stay behind, but Ethan shook his head. "This is our only shot," he said. "I have to see it through." The mission began under the cover of darkness. Ryan guided the Stellar Rogue through narrow asteroid fields and past enemy patrols, relying on Mia's precise navigation to avoid detection. Tension filled the ship as they drew closer to the catalyst's location. Every jump through hyperspace brought them deeper into danger. When they finally reached the facility, it loomed like a fortress, bristling with turrets and surrounded by a fleet of warships. Jacob split the team into two groups. One would create a diversion, drawing guards away from the main entrance. The other, led by Ethan and Laura, would infiltrate the core chamber where the catalyst was housed. The diversion worked. Explosions lit up the sky as Ryan's decoys lured Council ships into a fierce chase. Meanwhile, Ethan's group slipped inside, dodging patrols and disabling security systems. Laura's knowledge of alien technology proved invaluable as she deciphered complex locks and rerouted power grids. Inside the core chamber, they found the catalyst, a massive machine pulsing with energy. Laura examined it, her hands trembling. "I can disable it," she said, "but it'll take time." As she worked, Ethan stood guard, his weapon ready. Minutes dragged by, each second feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared. Council soldiers stormed the chamber, surrounding them. Ethan raised his hands slowly, stalling for time. "You don't have to do this," he shouted. "If you activate the catalyst, you'll destroy yourselves too." For a moment, the soldiers hesitated. Then, chaos erupted. Gunfire filled the air as Jacob's team arrived, launching a desperate counterattack. Amid the confusion, Laura finished her work. The catalyst powered down, its hum fading into silence. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But their fight was far from over. Outside, Council reinforcements closed in. Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. "Time to go," he said urgently. "I'll hold them off. You get out of here." As Ethan and the others fled, Ryan stayed behind, piloting the Stellar Rogue into the heart of the enemy fleet. A massive explosion lit up the sky, shaking the very foundations of the facility. Back on Earth, survivors watched the distant flash, unsure whether to mourn or celebrate. Humanity had won a critical victory, but at a terrible cost. The explosion of the Stellar Rogue echoed across the galaxy, a fiery testament to Ryan Mitchell's sacrifice. His final act had crippled the Council's fleet and destroyed the void catalyst, buying humanity precious time. But as Ethan Carter and his team fled the facility, they couldn't celebrate. The cost of their victory weighed heavily on them. Ryan's laughter, his stubborn courage, and his unwavering belief in humanity were gone, replaced by silence. Back on Earth, news of the Catalyst's destruction spread quickly. Refugees huddled in underground shelters whispered prayers of thanks, while soldiers prepared for the next wave of attacks. The Council's forces were still out there, battered but not broken. Jacob Hayes stood in the command center, staring at maps of enemy movements. "We've slowed them down," he said, his voice low. "But they're coming. And when they get here, we'll need more than luck to survive." Laura Bennett sat beside him, her hands trembling as she reviewed data from the mission. She replayed Ryan's last transmission over and over in her mind. Asterisk time to go. I'll hold them off. Asterisk tears blurred her vision, but she forced herself to focus. There was no time for grief. Not yet. Humanity needed her strength now more than ever. Kelvor and the Quarrens honored their promise, sending aid to Earth in the form of supplies and intelligence. Their support gave humanity a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't enough. The Council's leaders, furious about the loss of the Void Catalyst, doubled down on their efforts to crush Earth. Reports poured in of new fleets amassing near human-controlled systems. It was clear they intended to finish what they started. Ethan addressed the remnants of the resistance, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "We've shown them we won't back down," he said. "But this fight isn't just about us anymore. Every species that values freedom is watching. If we fall, so will they. We have to hold on. For everyone." Across the galaxy, the warning humanity had issued months ago continued to resonate. Some worlds fortified their defenses, preparing for the Council's wrath. Others sent messages of solidarity, vowing to stand with Earth if the war reached their borders. Even rogue traders and smugglers, once indifferent to politics, joined the cause. They smuggled weapons, food, and medicine to Earth's fighters, risking everything to help. Jacob worked tirelessly to organize Earth's defenses. He knew the Council's next attack would be brutal, targeting cities and civilian populations to break humanity's spirit. Underground bunkers became sanctuaries, stocked with supplies and guarded around the clock. Civilians trained in basic combat, learning how to use makeshift weapons. No one wanted to fight, but everyone understood they had no choice. As the days passed, Laura made a startling discovery. Analyzing data from the destroyed Catalyst, she uncovered evidence that the Council had been planning similar weapons for years. Entire star systems had already been erased, worlds erased without warning or explanation. "They've been doing this for decades," she told Ethan, her voice shaking with anger. "We weren't the first target, and if we don't stop them, we won't be the last." Ethan shared this information with Jacob, who immediately broadcast it to the galaxy. The message was simple. The Council doesn't just want to rule, they want to destroy. Run, fight, or hide, but do not trust them. This revelation turned the tide of public opinion. Species that had once feared the Council began openly resisting, forming alliances and sharing resources. For the first time, humanity wasn't alone. Then came the day the Council attacked again. Their ships descended upon Earth, larger and more menacing than before. Jacob led the defense, rallying his forces with grim determination. Explosions lit up the sky as lasers rained down on cities. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, but humanity refused to surrender. Amid the chaos, Ethan found himself standing beside Laura, watching as the battle unfolded. "Do you think we can win?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the roar of destruction. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "We have to," he said, "because if we don't, no one else will." And so, humanity fought on, one desperate battle at a time. The battle for Earth raged on, a storm of fire and fury that lit up the night sky. Jacob Hayes led humanity's defense with every ounce of strength he had left. Soldiers fought side by side with civilians, their weapons crude but their resolve unshakable. The Council's forces pushed harder than ever before, determined to crush resistance once and for all. Explosions tore through cities, reducing buildings to rubble and scattering survivors into underground shelters. Yet even as the world burned, humanity refused to give up. Ethan Carter stood in the command center, his face pale with exhaustion. He watched as reports streamed in from across the globe. Some victories, many losses. The Council's fleet was vast, their technology far superior. But humanity's spirit was something they hadn't anticipated. Refugees who had fled earlier now returned, bringing supplies and reinforcements. Smugglers and rogue traders joined the fight, their ships darting through enemy lines like sparks in the darkness. Even distant species, inspired by Earth's defiance, sent aid. It wasn't enough to win, but it kept hope alive. Laura Bennett worked tirelessly, analyzing data and searching for any advantage they could exploit. She discovered that the Council's main fleet relied on a single flagship to coordinate attacks. If they could disable it, the enemy's forces would fall into disarray. It's risky, she admitted, showing her findings to Jacob and Ethan. But if we succeed, we might have a chance. Jacob nodded grimly. We'll make it happen. He assembled a small team for one final mission: infiltrate the Council's flagship and take it down from the inside. Among the volunteers were Emily Dawson, whose hacking skills would be crucial, and a group of soldiers willing to risk everything. Ethan insisted on joining them, knowing this could be humanity's last stand. The mission began under cover of darkness. A stolen Council shuttle carried the team close to the flagship, disguised as part of the fleet. Laura guided them remotely, her voice steady despite the tension. You're clear for docking, she said. Be careful. Inside the flagship, chaos reigned. The team split up, moving quickly through corridors filled with enemy troops. Emily hacked into control panels, disabling security systems and opening doors. Gunfire erupted as they encountered resistance, each step forward costing lives. Ethan stayed focused, his mind racing with thoughts of Ryan and all those who had sacrificed themselves for this moment. Finally, they'd reached the ship's core, a massive chamber humming with energy. Emily planted explosives while Ethan covered her, his weapon trained on the entrance. Almost done, she whispered, her hands trembling as she worked. Moments later, the charges were set. Let's go, she shouted. As they retreated, explosions rocked the flagship, sending shockwaves through the fleet. Enemy ships scattered, their coordination shattered. Back on Earth, Jacob watched as the Council's forces faltered. They're breaking, someone shouted. Cheers erupted in the command center, but Jacob remained silent. He knew this wasn't over, not yet. The Council regrouped, launching a desperate counterattack. But humanity held its ground, bolstered by allies from across the galaxy. Ships from distant systems arrived, joining the fight against tyranny. Together, they pushed the Council back, forcing them to retreat. In the aftermath, Earth lay battered but alive. Survivors emerged from shelters, staring at the wreckage of their world. Ethan stood beside Laura, watching as the sun rose over a scarred horizon. We survived, he said softly. But the Council will be back. Laura nodded. Then we'll be ready. Across the galaxy, the warning humanity had issued became a rallying cry. Freedom-loving beings united, vowing to resist oppression wherever it rose. Humanity had shown them what courage looked like. And now, together, they would keep running, fighting, and standing their ground until the stars belonged to everyone. For now, though, there was peace and hope.